All right, welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather, the most comprehensive space weather on the internet, as well as the most detailed imagery you'll find of the sun. So thanks for stargazing with us. I'm your host, Dan, aka Smash-O-Mash, coming at you from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. So as we reported at the end of yesterday's live stream, we notice sunspot 3062 has risen down here at quite a high latitude, actually. Let's see how the latitude of that different than most of those other sunspots that are much closer to the equator. An interesting feature. Here's colorized magnetogram. And we've got a ton of information to get through once again today. We are expecting another coronal mass ejection strike coming soon. Let's take a look at global seismicity real quick here. There's the 90-day bar graph. You can see a 7 magnitude earthquake drought continuing. And let's scroll up the list here. No major quakes over the past 24 hours. Was there even anything in the 5 magnitude range? Barely. Nothing yet showing up on the list there. I think the largest quake of the past 24 was this 5.3 at Indonesia. So pretty calm seismically speaking over the past 24 hours. Remember, folks, earthquake droughts end in large earthquakes. Looks like Philippines also saw a 5.0, so only 2 quakes in the 5 range there. It's been a calm 24 hours, seismically speaking. Briefly looking at volcanoes here, Shivaluch continues to explode on the Kamchatka Peninsula and produce a 17,000-foot ash plume, flight level 170. Krakatoa also exploding in the Sunda Strait, flight level 090 from Krakatoa. Now we've got some effusive eruptive activity happening at Kilauea on the big island of Hawaii. A slight inflationary trend continues at the summit, and also there's been some lava ooze-outs, although the lava lake remained largely at the level of the bounding levees. Nevado del Ruiz moving to South America. The Colombian Nevado del Ruiz exploding, flight level 200, a 20,000-foot ash plume fertilizing South America. Sangay has dispersed its volcanic ash, but Revenador continues to explode in Ecuador, flight level 160. It's a 16,000-foot ash plume from Revenador, and Sabancaya in Peru exploding as well. 24,000-foot plume of volcanic ash through some intermittent puff emissions. It's blowing up in Peru, flight level 240 from Sabancaya. Now moving into what we normally show on YouTube. We've been putting up everything together because, hey, lots of people are watching the content. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Here's the last 24 hours in ionized helium, 304 angstroms. We've got some coronal holes that are so well defined that they're even showing up in this wavelength. See this almost like a question mark shaped feature. And if you've got a question as to what a coronal hole is, it's a area in the sun where there's a lack of certain chemical species. And these are typically the source of high-speed coronal hole wind streams. Protons are blasting out of those areas. And let's get into lots more. Again, we are expecting a coronal mass ejection strike once again later today, a slow mover. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux is now down to 144 solar flux units. And if you're wondering what that is, the upper chromosphere and lower corona emit radio frequency. Hence my animation here of the 10.7 centimeter radial flux. There's the 1-year chart to put that in context. The black line there is the radial flux. The red line below it is a sunspot number, and you can see how proportional those are. And here's your space weather enthusiast dashboard. Now NOAA stepping up to the plate and forecasting some geomagnetic unrest and geomagnetic storm conditions. So this is the expected arrival of the coronal mass ejection late in the day today. We'll see what happens. At the moment, geomagnetic calm conditions. So here's the earthly geospace modeled by the Space Weather Modeling Framework for the past 4 hours. And it's showing pretty homogeneous pressure here as the plasma environment around planet Earth is reaching static equilibrium following a significant coronal mass ejection strike and brief period of geomagnetic storm yesterday. We'll get to it. First, ground magnetic perturbations. So that was Earth's magnetic moment from space. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Also the last 4 hours. And things pretty calm here on the surface level. That's our ground magnetic perturbations map. We'll let that play through. And let us know what coffee you're drinking in the comments. We're drinking Nicaraguan medium roast today, and it is organic if you're wondering. So there's your KP index. The planetary K index is a measurement of global geomagnetism. And yeah, just a brief period of geomagnetic storm and many hours of geomagnetic unrest happening yesterday, subsiding just before midnight into geomagnetic calm conditions. So at the moment, a KP1. And the current solar wind speed is about 412 kilometers per second. Solar wind density just under 7 at 6.8 protons per cubic centimeter. We'll be awaiting a signal for another coronal mass ejection strike. So here are the GOES magnetometers over the past 3 days. And I think I did forecast some lower readings on those. And it all has to do with the heliospheric current sheet, which we will show next. So here's your top view ecliptic plane field plot. Earth lies in a south pole current sheet. No changes expected to come to that soon. Keep in mind the magnetic environment can change with slim to no warning. Continuing on to show the line of sight field plot. We show it daily as the solar cycle 25 solar polar field progression continues. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, well, through a solar cycle, the south solar polar field migrates to the north and vice versa. It happens about every 11 years in a normal series of solar cycles. Let's move on to coronal holes. And again, we've got some very well-defined coronal holes moving through the Earth-facing zone here. So let's take a look at that in some composite imagery here from the SDO. And folks, the solar corona is very bumpy. And especially around where there's a coronal hole, these features are often hidden by all of these. It's very three-dimensional. It may not look three-dimensional, but it indeed is. And when those coronal holes are facing the Earth, they are the most well-defined. We use the magnetic data that we showed in the previous frame to know when those are going to be showing up. Let's do a close-up, since it's a pretty lively series of coronal holes here. That's the last 24 hours. And very well-defined coronal holes. We can expect high-speed coronal hole wind streams from those in about 3 days. Next, moving to sunspots. Again, we reported sunspot 3062 probably just a few minutes to an hour after it rose in the southeastern limb down there. Otherwise, a slight reduction here in solar activity over the past couple of days. Most likely places to see solar flares would be out of the northern hemisphere, as those are the most magnetically complex sunspots. And let's take a look at those in 1700 angstroms. This sunspot down here also capable of producing large flares, I think. Sunspot 3062 not looking particularly magnetically complex to me. Here's a close-up. And we're only seeing one magnetic field, only one umbra from sunspot 3062, that new one in the southeast. Let's keep it going. Lots of stuff to cover. Here's your GOES X-ray flux measured by the GOES 16 and GOES 17 over the past 3 days. We are still seeing a mostly sea level background X-ray output. No major flares here over the past several days. There's 131 angstroms from SDO. It's our favorite telescope, as we like stargazing at the closest star. Plenty of interesting physics playing out. Even to this day, a lot of people think they know what's going on with the sun, and, well, some astrophysics is in the process of being rewritten. Here's the proton flux over the past 3 days. No spikes in that, no relativistic particles. We would invite you to Make America Not Suck Again, or Mansa. Smash Staff and I both have shirts. And, yeah, we're suggesting that you do your part and make America not suck again. If you notice, the whole planet's been sucking over the past pushing 3 years, thanks to terrible decision-making by bureaucrats at various different levels, whether they're corporations or government officials or non-government organizations. Some terrible, terrible decisions have been made and continue to be made by people who are wasting tons of resources on ineffective solutions. So one of the ways that we're trying to make Earth not suck again is by making America not suck again. And if you think that's a political slogan, then, well, you don't know me well. Because I'm completely apolitical. I'm a pragmatist. Never belonged to a political party, likely never will. Because, well, my stance is way too nuanced on most issues. So thanks to our new subscribers over on YouTube. Don't forget to press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Check our playlist for videos that have nothing to do with space, weather, or meteorology. Maybe check out our most recent interview with Eugene the Philosopher. Talked to Eugene for over an hour over the weekend. So check that out if you like. Smashamash.com is our homepage. You can find all our links to our social media there. And if you want to support the channel via subscription services, we just launched our subscription services website, smashamash.com/smashteam in October of 2021. If you want to send us a few bucks per month at the gold or silver level, we greatly appreciate that. You're increasing the probability that these videos will continue to exist and remain publicly visible for all to view. So again, check us out on social media. You can even find a permanent invite link to our Discord chat right there on the homepage at smashamash.com. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. There's smashamash.com/smashteam. Those GDAX daily reports are only for gold and silver members. This video was originally streamed live to Twitch at twitch.tv/smashamash. It's such a great live streaming platform that we use it on the regs here at the Smash News Network, Lee's Busted Name in News. And once again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks to our new followers over on twitch.tv/smashamash as well. Next, we've got a star chart for you here. Jupiter and Mars sandwiching the moon. If you're up before dawn, you may see those bodies up there. The moon near its apex at the moment here in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Also Venus rising ahead of the sun as Saturn sets in the west. Here's a solar system forecast. We're in the process of going from a gibbous waning to a crescent waning. Here's the 1 week forecast for the solar system. There's where things will be in a week. Mercury swinging around to make another pass. And let's take a look at some coronagraphs. As there's been quite a few coronal mass ejections, there was a rather spectacular one yesterday that you're seeing there in the lower right. That's all the frames from yesterday, July 19th. We'll also show today so far. And there's today's coronagraphs. We'll also show some extended imagery here from Lagrange point 5, the location of Stereo A's coronagraph, and Lagrange point 1, the Soho-Lascaux C3. So there's that spectacular coronal mass ejection. We're not expecting it to have any earthly directed components. It was good enough to be featured on yesterday's thumbnail. So plenty more to cover here as we continue on. Turns out people like longer videos on YouTube. I don't know if it has to do with the interface barely functioning or what the deal is, but hey, we aim to please. At the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Here's your hydrogen alpha imagery from the ground-based solar observatory at El Teide, Spain. And there still are quite a few filaments. Likelihood of coronal mass ejection still kind of high. Remember, folks, you don't need sunspots or solar flares to see coronal mass ejections. Don't get them confused. Solar flares are photons. Coronal mass ejections are primarily protons. Diffuse gas. So here's 304 angstroms from the GOES 16 SUVI. That's the last about 2.5 hours. And you can see this great prominence down here associated with sunspot 3062. Happening as we speak. And it looks like some of that's collapsing. Some of it might be ejecting. We'll keep you posted in later videos. Here's the last 24 hours and 171 angstroms. This is the house favorite wavelength. It's my personal favorite wavelength. I think Smash staff agrees. And let's continue on to our bonus features segment. So we've got some anomalous electrons once again here, creating some GPS errors in some unlikely locations. You can see huge GPS errors happening at night and around the Southern Ocean and Antarctica. The total electron content forecast is the coupled thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere electrodynamics. And while the universe is not electric, not everything is electric, folks, but some things are. And the electron content around planet Earth certainly is. We'll let it play through one more time to show you those major GPS errors. They usually occur around the equator at noon. And you can see some oddities happening there. Some wild swings in the total electron content. So that's depicting the electrons all the way up to your GPS satellite, which is located on the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt there at about 12,500 miles of altitude. Feel free to pause the video on that frame if you want to examine that diagram. Satellite's community dashboard showing no charging hazards at the moment. Communications looking pretty good. Here's the GOES electron flux, and we briefly got into warning levels just before midnight. That has now subsided, and now it's pushing back toward warning levels. That's the last 3 days from the GOES 16 and GOES 16 and GOES 17's radiological measurements from their geosynchronous orbits. And as we forecasted yesterday, we saw much lower levels of electron flux, right about where I suggested they would be. So that's the NOAA forecast model there for relativistic electrons. Here's the one-year chart to put that in context. That's from solon.info. We'll also show the F-ionosphere layer, which is in many ways the bridge between Earth and space. So here's the vibrational frequency in megahertz, or millions of vibrations per second. Yes, it's the bridge between Earth and space. And we like to show all kinds of different data here to attempt to help people understand the physics. So here's the anomalygram. This is anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. We show this daily as well. And our channel has been archiving all of these space weather facts for over 5 years. So again, that's your anomalygram. We're going to pause this on the latest image here. Once that plays through once more. There we go. There's 10 o'clock universal time ionogram and 10 o'clock universal time anomalygram. Primarily low-frequency anomalies at the moment. We'll also show the latest intensitygram of the closest star. And once again, thanks for stargazing with us. There's the current environment. This spot down here is fairly likely to produce large solar flares as well, as we talked to Eugene about the fact that sunspots are more likely to produce large flares at the limb than in the center of the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. And let's bring up a composite series of images here from SDO. This is a lively series of frames here. 2 species of ionized iron and 1 species of ionized helium. How about 75% zoom? There you go. And a very well-defined coronal hole there of south pole orientation. So let's continue on here. Yesterday we showed some great imagery of the likely spots for aurorae. That has since subsided. And let's take a look at the surface winds of the eastern world. So that's what's going on at the surface. Here's what's going on in the jet stream, the 250 hectopascal winds. There you go. And here are the jet streams of the Americas. And the jet stream largely staying north of the U.S. here. We continue to have an anticyclone over the southwestern U.S. now. You can see this high pressure zone and a clockwise rotation, as we see with anticyclones in the northern hemisphere. Some jet stream turbulence happening over the Pacific Ocean and some backward jet stream here south of Hawaii. Those are the surface winds of the Americas. And there is a strong low here in between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. Here are the surface winds of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And here are the jet streams of this side of the planet. And some backward jet streams there over the Indian Ocean. A bit of a weak signal. And let's continue on. Here's your weather.gov map. If your county's lit, click your county. We've got gale warnings around Alaska and Hawaii. And some excessive heat continuing in places like Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. Weather.gov is what we're looking at. And it looks like we've got some heat advisories in eastern Pennsylvania as well. Here's your NASA GOES lightning mapper. And you can even see evidence of this clockwise rotation here around the Four Corners area. See the lightning sort of rotating there in a clockwise fashion. Let's take a look at a real-time lightning map. And we are streaming live. Let me make sure that the stream is good and everything looks just fine. So we've got quite a bit of lightning here at the moment. Some terrestrial strikes here in places like Oklahoma and Georgia. Also a single lightning bolt happening there around the Arkansas-Missouri border. So next time you hear thunder, I would check it out if I were you, lightningmaps.org. It could actually save your you-know-what. Don't get struck by lightning, folks. It tends to be unhealthful. So now we're looking at the temperature anomaly map. This is the GFS temperature anomaly in degrees Celsius for the northern hemisphere. And I would note that all these hot areas right here, these are climate change, and these cold areas, these are weather. Just so you know. So you're supposed to be frightened of these warm regions, and you're supposed to not know about these cold areas. That's the way it is. Facts. Yeah, facts. I'm not sure exactly why facts have become controversial nowadays. But again, that's your temperature anomaly forecast based on the GFS model for the next 72 hours of the northern hemisphere. Going to have some quick melting there in Greenland, with some hot temperatures showing up there, and some wild striations of temperature in the U.S. You're going to see some wild swings here of warm to cold temperature anomalies. You may need to have your AC turned on in the daytime and a sweater at nighttime. So huge temperature swings happening there over large portions of the country. Again, this temperature anomaly is the GFS model, and it's shown in degrees Celsius. We'll also show pressure and precipitation based on the same GFS model over the next 72 hours. There you have that. And a little more information to cover here. Here's the pressure environment. So a huge anticyclone here over the northern Pacific. See that high pressure zone rotating clockwise. And a powerful low here in between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. A weaker low around Lake Superior. So that's windy.com. They've got a great mobile app. Maybe check that out if you like. Windy.com. And here's your US Doppler radar. We will fixate on the lower 48 for the remainder. Here's your shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog. And there's water vapor. You can see that weak low there moving over Lake Superior. It's got a lot of dry, massive air there, which does not tend to strengthen a low-pressure system. And some moisture there over the southwestern U.S. Besides that, largely dry conditions here, although some rapid cloud nucleation happening in the southeast. We'll close out with your recap. There's the U.S. Doppler radar. Facts. There is the shortwave radiation satellite showing clouds and fog at 3.9 nanometer infrared radiation. And there is water vapor, showing all of the water vapor, not just that which is condensed onto clouds, but even that which is invisible to the naked eye. The water vapor map is a great way to forecast your weather. If you're unable to do so, we hope you're continuing to tune into our channel. And hey, we hope you understand physics. Now, that's a prerequisite for our channel, the ability to read and preferably high school level physics. In any case, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Don't forget to press like, subscribe, share, etc. We'll see you soon. And may that solar wind be at your back.